you have to save the drawing. Whether you put it on a flash drive, if you put it on a desktop, obviously that desktop has to have a screen too, but you have to save it somewhere. So go to File, Save As. So we're just gonna type right here, gasket, right? So notice that right now, I'm gonna save it as a SLD PRT, right? So it's saving as a SolidWorks drawing, correct? Now, like I said earlier, eSprit was smart enough to partner up with SolidWorks. Well, I don't think they're like really partners, like they don't pay each other, anything like that. But they agree with SolidWorks to let SolidWorks drawings be imported to eSprit, right? All the top major companies did that. So pretty much SolidWorks is accepted if you're using Mastercam, GibbsCam, eSprit. There's another one called NX. NX I heard is really, really good, but the problem is it's so expensive. So not that many people use it, right? We gotta realize that if you buy SolidWorks straight up for your company, I don't even know how much it costs. One of those things, you know, when it says, yeah, purchase this, call somebody so they can give you a quote. Maybe that's gonna be a lot of money, right? If they don't even put the price on there, correct? So I know for sure though, because I've had buddies that work for eSprit and stuff like that, and one time I told them, hey man, how much would eSprit cost? You guys know how much eSprit costs? If you want to open up your own shop and use it there, guess how much it costs? 10,000, but for minimum. We're just talking about Z and X on the lathe and XYZ on the mill. 10 grand. Now, the way eSprit works, you're gonna add 4th to 5th axis, you gotta pay money for that too, right? So you gotta pay, I think like another 5,000 for each axis. But the good thing about eSprit is that, let's say it costs 30,000 for something, well they just add it to what you've already paid. You don't have to start from the beginning and buy the whole package over again. Does that make sense? So if I buy 4th and 5th axis and I already have 1, 2, 3, I don't have to buy 1, 2, 3 again. I just pay for the 4th and the 5th axis. Does that make sense?
Is that a one time or is that a yearly?
I think it's for as long as you have eSprit, right? But I've heard that eSprit goes all the way up to $100,000. Because you guys got to think about it. Yeah, we just have a regular 2-axis lathe here, right? But of course we have the added feature of live tooling, right? So live tooling costs more. And then there's machines out there though that have 2 spindles. So 1 spindle and a sub spindle, right? There's machines out there that have 2 or 3 turrets on them. So all that comes into play. Bar feeders, everything. If you wanted the software to talk to it, obviously you gotta pay more. Does that make sense? So I've heard of eSprit going all the way up to $100,000. And that's usually, you only get it, I think 1 or 2 licenses for your shop, like the computers. That's it. If you wanna put it on a different laptop or a desktop, you gotta pay like another $8,000 just to have another license. Does that make sense? So trust me guys, it could get very expensive. So like I said, we're gonna save it as a SolidWorks file. Now, here is where, excuse me, here is where it matters on what you're gonna do, right? So, if I wanted to 3D print this, I'd have to save this file under an STL format. Does that make sense? So I would come down here, open this up, find STL, and save it under that, right?
For 3D.
For 3D printing, yes. Guys, these are a lot of different things. I don't know what each one of them does. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna sit up here and BS you. But the ones that I have used, I know what they're used for, right? So STL for 3D printing. DXF the plasma cutter reads that one, right? So if I wanted to plasma cut this gasket and have the lines and everything, I would save it as a DXF file, right? When it saves it as a DXF, it basically turns it into a 2D, because it just traces the lines, right? Because obviously with the plasma cutter, you can't change your Z depth,
No,
right?
you already have your thickness.
Yeah, your thickness of your material is what you're gonna cut out. Does that make sense? It's not like on the mill that we can move our Z up and down like this, right? Make like a wave feature. So yeah, we're gonna save it as the regular SLD. which
STO.
is-
STO.
What?
STO?
Yeah. No. As a regular SolidWorks one.
Oh.
So it's right SLD. What is it?
Is that the top?
These are in there.
Yeah, just click away from it. Yeah, it's there.
Okay. SLD PRT.
Is it solid part?
Yeah, SolidWorks part, right? So like we said, we're gonna save it there, right? Now from there, I come over and I open up eSprit, right? Oh no, I've told these guys to update my eSprit. You guys see how this says release date 2020?
Mm-hmm.
The ones on your computers are 2022.
We're updated.
Yeah, because this logo is blue.
And your expiration expires sooner than ours.
Yeah. So let me see if it's gonna let me import it here. Because last time it said that it was just a blank document. So if I go to File and I go to Open, so it's saying all the eSprit files down here. So I'm gonna click the SolidWorks file, SLD PRT. All right, let me. All right, cool. There's our part, right? So, like I said, guys, typically, every company has like their drafters, right? So the engineers are gonna get with the drafters. The drafter is the one that's gonna draw this part, like on SolidWorks or any other CAD software, right? Then, once that happens, you're also gonna make the blueprint, right? Then they give it to the machinist, the programmer, and the programmer can open up this file and import it into eSprit, right? So now, we're gonna go to the programming side of the job, correct? We were basically acting like the drafters when we drew it up, right? Now we're gonna put on another hat of a programmer,
Okay.
correct? So,
Chain it.
we gotta know how to use sub-elements and hide, and then snap and grid, right? So with snap and grid, like let's say I wanted to add a point down here, it will grab it, it will make that point, oh, it's not on a Z. So if you hover around it, it's gonna find the center of that point, right, on the snap and grid. But if I wanna click one surface, one face, I gotta change it to sub-elements and hide, right? I know some of you guys had that issue on Thursday. Y'all weren't able to figure that one out, right? So make sure you go to sub-elements and hide. So now if I click on the face, it's asking me, hey, is this the face you really want? As that question mark, right? So you left click again, and you basically confirm saying yes, right? Like I said, guys, you kind of want to go to tools first, go to options, change this group items to a different color, right? Because when it's dark gray like that and the part's gray, sometimes you don't know what face you highlighted, correct? So if I change this color and group items to, let's say, pink, right? I hit OK, then hit OK. Now, if I highlight this face, there we go, right? I know that that's the face that I want it to be on, correct? So, when you go to View, you want to turn on this UVW, because it's going to tell you where your axes are at, right? Then we're going to go View, go to toolbars, and come down to orientate part, right? This is gonna open up another little window on the right, and it's gonna have the three different options, X, Y, and Z, correct? With like an up arrow. So when I click this, boom, you see that? That came up? Now, the problem whenever we import the drawing from Solidworks is that if I did it on my top plane, it's basically gonna be on my front plane when I import it to eSprit, right? So that all has to do with how you drew it, whether you drew it on top plane, front plane, or whatever. But luckily, we have the option to rotate the part, right? Because how much would it suck if we didn't have that option, correct? So from the get-go, you had to do it, hey, strictly on front plane, no matter what, and it has to stay like that for all the drawing. That wouldn't be so great, right? So luckily, somebody that's way smarter than me was able to make this software and was able to give us that tool, right? So when I click the face, Z up, boom. You see how that part flipped? So now if I hit F7, that's my top plane, right? So here's my X, my Y, and my Z going down, right? So the reason that we're doing this is we gotta imagine us doing the part as it will be on the mill. Does that make sense? So this is the way that we're gonna machine the part from our Z going down in that way, right? So that's why we have to know how to rotate the part, how to get it where we need to be at. You guys remember that example that I showed y'all with that Z plate? How you can even move it on your X-axis and your Y-axis, right? So the way that the engineers or the drafters draw the drawing, well, you don't have any control of that, right? They're gonna draw it any way they want. But once you import it, you gotta know how to manipulate it and move it around, right? And change the view, so then you're able to work on it, right? So now, here's my part, correct? So like I said, you wanna have at least 3 or 4 of these features on, so you have more control, right? So if you don't remember how to do this, make sure you write down this for your notes, correct? So F2 opens up your features, right? So on your features, that's where you're gonna have your chains and your toolpath and everything else, correct? F11 turns on your layers, right? Layers is similar to your mask, right? And when you can activate or deactivate something just by checking the box. But I like putting it in layers because it gives me a lot more control, right? So depending on where you work at, that programmer has their own style of doing things, correct? So for me, the way that I learn, the way that's easier for me, so everything's on a default right now, right? So I hit new, I can make a new layer. So on this one, I'm gonna put geo for my geometry, correct? I'm gonna hit new, and then I'm gonna put on here part solid, right? Then I'm gonna hit new, and I'm gonna put chains. Whoops. Chains. Then I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to put toolpath. Like I said, guys, depending on where you work at, it's how they do this, right? I worked at a shop before that, I mean, because you got competition everywhere, and anywhere you go, people talk mess about somebody else, right? So when I worked for this one company, we had 2 different programmers there that they've been working there for a long time, right? One of them would be like, oh no man, you don't need to put all those layers, you only need like 1 or 2. The other guy had like 10 of them on there. And he would always talk mess about the other one, like, oh, that one doesn't have his stuff organized. And the other guy would be like, oh, he does too much. You don't have to do all that to get the job done. But whatever you feel comfortable, don't let nobody take that away, right? So however you get the job done, that's the most important thing, correct? So if I come back over here and I click my part, so notice that I just got my face, right? Why? Because I still have sub-elements and high on, correct? So if I take those off now I'll push snap and grid. Now when I select the feature, it selects the whole solid now, right? It's not just grabbing one face. So over here, under my key, if I open up general, down here is my layer, right? So I could change which layer this part is on. So I'm just gonna click part solid, right? So now if I uncheck it, the whole thing goes away. Does that make sense?
I don't have a key on mine. Is it the bottom tab where you
No, push Alt Enter.
Alt enter?
Yeah. Alt Enter opens up this key one. Alright, so F2, F11, Alt Enter, right? If you push Control M, that opens up your mask, but your mask is pretty much like your layers. Does that make sense? But there's just a lot more. See, if I push Control M, that's my mask, but there's a lot more options here. Does that make sense? I mean, you can take off the part, you can take off the toolpath, pretty much what this is, but we only need minimum these, so that's why I like putting the layers instead of messing with the mask, because there's so much on there. Does that make sense?
So when you just did, can you redo what you just did real quick? Cause I was trying to follow along, but I just didn't have to.
On the key,
Yeah.
so like I said, your snap and grid have to be on. You select the part, right? Now under here on the general, you open up the layer, and I could put this on any one that I made, right? So I'm gonna keep it on the part solid. So now if I check part solid, I'm in control of it now, right? When it comes out, it goes back in, correct?
That's what she said.
So now for me to do my chains, correct? I need to be able to select my lines, right? So obviously right now I don't have any lines. Well, I have the solid, but I don't have any lines, wireframes in the background, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Geo, because I want it on the Geo, right? Click the part, right click it, hit copy, and go to Smash. With Smash, you gotta have wireframe on. So right here is checked, correct? Then we hit OK. Now, if I turn off my part solid, there goes my wireframe.
I think I did part solid wrong.
You did what?
Did part solid wrong.
Oh,
Does everybody have this so far? All right, now that I have this, well, basically, all I'm gonna do is do what I did it, what we did in intro, correct? So in intro, we learn how to make your lines, how to make your toolpath and everything, right? So it's basically what we're gonna do now, right? What we did on intro. So, a big thing, guys, is once you start doing your chains and everything like that, a lot of people that learn just like here in the classroom setting, they don't do it correctly, like in the real world, right? Why? Because they don't put the tools organized and make them like it would be in the real world. Does that make sense? So if I just get a tool, it's gonna randomly select a number for me, like 165. Well, if I take that program and I put it in that house, how many tools does that house have code? 20. Where the heck did they get the other 165 from, right? So when it calls that tool out, it's not gonna know what to do. The machine itself is gonna give you a code, right? So here it's gonna run the simulation, no problem, because it's in fairy tale land, right? But we need to start thinking as programmers, is this gonna actually work on my machine? Because this is like anything else in life, guys. If you do it good, if you do it perfect, it's gonna do what it wants you to do, right? But there's so many ways of messing up, and not a lot of ways of doing it right. Does that make sense? So, bottom line, what we do here, we have to be able to put it on the post processor, correct? Put that on the machine, and make sure it cuts out this gasket, or the part that we're making, right? So, right off the bat, I gotta be thinking, okay, what operations am I gonna do? How am I gonna do it, right? In real life, what will we do first as an operation on this?
Face.
Facing, right? You always do facing first, pretty much, correct? So, if I just click on the outside lines and I put my face mill, depending on what size it is, it probably won't make the proper cut. Does that make sense? Or it's gonna face it and it's not gonna touch the whole solid. It's just gonna touch like on the side or something else, correct? So a way to get away from that is to make more lines, right? A lot of people think, nah, man, you can't add more lines because that's not the part. I can tell it to do whatever I want it to do, as long as I know how to do it.
Lie to it.
Exactly, right? You can lie to it. Does that make sense? So me, I like lying to it, because it feels like if I got away with something, right? And I didn't get in trouble, and I got away. You know, like it's all right. It happened, so it's cool. So I love lying to that machine, right? As long as it does what I need it to do, whatever you gotta do, you could do it, correct? So, if this gasket, so the thickness is what? 2.5, 2.66, no, 2.88, right? So from this top to this bottom, it's 1.44 radius, correct? So it's 2.88 wide, big, correct? So from the get-go, I gotta start thinking how my machine is, right? So what tools do I have? So for example, tool number one that we use on there is a 3-inch diameter face mill, correct? So I could actually just do one line going through the part, and it's gonna face off all that material in one shot. Does that make sense? So that's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit F7. I'm gonna grab a line, and I'm just gonna come from here. Oh no, wait. Yeah, there it is. So now I'm gonna go to create, features, get a manual line, go from here to over here, and then stop it. Where's my stop at? Why does this look like this? Hold on, guys, this always happens. Bring that down, bring this over, bring this down. There you go. See, it was hiding. So now that I made that line, I'm gonna hit stop now. Where'd it go? Why isn't it making it? Is it working for you guys?
The manual or the auto change?
The manual.
Can you click on that line?
Yeah, is it making that line for you?
It's on and off.
There you go. I had to make 2 points. So I made a point here and a point there. And then it made that chain. Right? So we'll just delete that line. So this chain, I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna change the layer to it because it's obviously a chain, right? So that's a chain. So I just had to make one point here and one point there. That's it, right? So now,
So then you hit, like, you click the chain and then click on the, from one point to the other?
yeah, click on one point, click manual chain, so the blue one, right? The red one's auto, the blue one is manual. So you click one end, you click the other end, and then you hit stop on the top.
Okay. And
If
then
you don't hit stop, it's not gonna save that chain. Yeah, you just leave it on.
Like a car, automatic and manual.
Huh?
Auto and manual,
Yeah.
like transmission.
Everybody there?
Mine just never forms that chain.
Did you do the points?
Yeah. Here.
Now, we want to get our solid, we're going to put our solid in our simulator, right? So really guys, when I make a solid on the part, like the part stock, that's just in eSprit. It's not real life, right? But if you don't do it, you're not going to be able to see the cutting motion of it, right? But we know that out here in the real world, it's whatever you cut your stock material to be, correct? So, I'm gonna go ahead and, we gotta go to mill first. So switch to solid and mill. Then right here, the simulation comes out, right? And then over here goes simulation parameters. We go to our solid. So, just like Gabriel taught you guys, we can make this any way we want, right? So we could input the numbers in here, so we switch the numbers, or we could pick the arrow and then click on our part, and then automatically generates the numbers for us, correct? Why are you laughing?
He didn't show us that. That seems like it'd be a lot easier.
Oh, yeah, he showed us this last class.
How did you do
That would be
parameters?
nice to know.
All right, look up here real quick. Once you go to the switch to solid mill, now you're able to click on this one, simulation, right? So hit simulation and then go to simulation parameters.
So he made us really think about all the numbers we had to put in, and then on the start X, Y, and Z, we had to like put all these negative numbers in.
So, I mean, like, you can do it either way, guys, right? So, let's say that in real life sometimes though, what I do is obviously you gotta measure the stock material that you really have, correct? And then from there is when I input my numbers. So if I just click on this and click on the part, well, I'm not actually compensating for the actual stock material. Does that make sense? But you can easily just change those numbers to compensate whatever you're missing from that stock material, right? So normally I just click this arrow, click the part, we see how it moved, right? So it set all my numbers for me. Go to add, there was a stock. Make sure, you have to make sure you have the stock on there, right? And then hit OK. Now when I push the pause button, there's the material right there, right? And like I said, guys, I could change these numbers to whatever I want. So it is good that he taught you guys that way too, right? Because you could tell that, hey, my material is actually longer than this, or it's wider, or it's deeper than it, right? But just for our purposes, we're just gonna click it right now. But if we were really making this part, we'd go out there and we'll actually measure the material, and then we would adjust these
Because
to
your
whatever
stock's
we
gonna
got.
be different from what that
Yeah.
exact measurement is.
Because you're always gonna have more material in your stock. It's not gonna be exactly what this is, right? So if I hit OK, like I said, if I hit pause, there's the material, right? So now if I go to chain, I come up here to solid mill traditional. I go to facing.
You didn't select the chain first.
It's not liking it. It's saying that it's not a closed feature. So
Look at that,
I
right?
didn't like just having that line on there, which I don't know if it's because of the software, but normally you could just make that and they'll make it for you. Yours came out?
Look at yours on the left though. It shows yellow then blue to the dot. I wonder if that's it.
No.
Oh,
It's doing it.
oh, okay. That's
Yeah, I think this is because it's the older model. Because mine is, this is 2000s, your guys is newer.
I see why mine came up, so I went to, what is it, milling tools?
It's not even letting me do that.
Yeah, I'm getting the same thing.
Yeah, I clicked milling, switch to solid mill.
Yeah,
And then
it
gives you
is.
right, and then it gave me a pick right there, milling tools, and then hit the face mill.
No, but that's just the tool ID and everything. It's not the actual facing. Alright, so we're just gonna do this. We're gonna make some lines, so then it could be enclosed, right? I think it's just because of the software. So if I go here, I bring it over, so that is what, negative 2.2. Alright? Draw another one over here at 2.2. On this side, right? Make one from here to here. So that's 1.5. Take another one down, 1.5. Alright, so now I'm just gonna trim these outside ones. Now if I select this, I'm gonna go to create features, auto, right? Boom, it made that change now, right? So now from there, it should give me the facing now because it's enclosed. We got it? That's weird, they didn't let me do it because I've done that when I worked at that shop and everything and there was no problem.
older version.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit manual change, right?
And the box is auto chain.
When you select the box, you just hit auto chain and it automatically does it for you. Now, we see how this arrow is down here and it's facing that direction, right? So if I wanted to change that, the direction, I could highlight the chain, right click, go to create, edit features, and here I could reverse the chain,
Reverse, reverse.
right? Or here I could also change the start point. New start, and let's say I want to pick it up here. So you guys see how now it's up here, right? And then I'm going to reverse it there.
Huh. Yeah.
So you could change it to any way you want, right? Because we gotta think about it like, so this is gonna happen in real life, right? So when that face mill comes and takes off that material, which direction do you want it to come in, correct? Do you want conventional or climb milling, right? So that's how you control the actual chain, right? So now that I click on this, what's that? What do you mean, Jose?
I can create the lines.
You can't create the lines?
When you create the points,
Guys, now we're gonna highlight that chain, come to facing, right? So if we go here, if we click down, we could go to system default all. Now, some people teach you do that every time, right? When you do system default all, it erases everything and you start brand new, right? I don't like doing that because then you gotta check every little box again, correct? Normally, like let's say I would face this, the screen's gonna remember it. So next part I make of facing, it's gonna be like, oh, this is what you had last time. Do you wanna use that again, right? So when you're facing, it's normally the same thing, correct? So I don't like hitting system default all. Some people teach you to do it every single time. Not me. I like whatever's faster, right? whatever's faster, whatever's gonna get done. So, solid mill facing, right? I come over here, I'm gonna click metric, go to inches. This little filter right here will tell me what tools I have. So I'm gonna use face mill, 3 inch. Hit OK. Now, if I look up here,
Yep.
if I click on my tools, look what number that gave. 165, right? Now, I can't fix that until I get out of the operation. So now that I'm out, you see how it's saying function not allowed? Because I have that facing operation open, right? I need to come out of it, so I hit escape and just come out of it. Now if I go to my tools, I'm able to click in it now, right? So on this one, it's gonna be tool number 1, correct? And it's gonna change that automatically to a 1 also, right? So now I'm gonna hit OK. Now if I go back to that feature, now if I start making, now if I click down here, well that face was already there, but now if I go to strategy, it's not gonna do it because it's facing this, I have to cut a comp. But if this would be like a contouring that had cut a comp on it, that tool number would have came out. Does that make sense? So in our case though, we're gonna leave it as 1 because as a programmer, that's one of the things you have to do. A lot of times, if you're working on a program and it's not finished yet, the guy that's gonna run the part on the machine, they want a tool list, right? Which tools am I gonna use? So the quicker you can get them the tool list, the better and the faster it's gonna be for them, right? Because then, instead of just sitting there waiting for you, they can already start getting the tools together, right? Because obviously you need to put the tools together to run the job, correct? So down here, it says RPMs, right? So obviously you're gonna change those RPMs to whatever your machine is capable of, right? If we're just running the simulation, you can leave them blank and it'll still run the simulator, right? But if I don't give it any numbers, once I run the post processor, it's not gonna have any numbers there. So what's gonna happen with that code, when you put it on the machine, you're gonna get an alarm, right? Because you're not giving it a spindle speed or a feed rate. Does that make sense? So, I'm gonna set the RPMs to 3,000. Feed rate on X and Y, I'm just gonna hit 20 point. And then my Z's coming down, so I'm just gonna hit 40.
100%.
Alright, so here, strategy, the cutting strategy, I could go zigzag, I could go parallel, I could go straight, whatever I want to do, right? So if I move this, it's going to change the way it generates the code, the way the cutting path is. Does that make sense? So that's what the strategy is. See how it's zigzag, conventional, or climbing, right? One pass, yes, no, or adaptive. Optimal cutting angle, yes. Bridge segments, all this is fine. Your step over, so your step over is at 50%, right? So this is how you control whether you're going to take 1 pass or 2 passes on there, right? Stock allowance for the walls. Obviously, we're facing, so we don't need to worry about the walls, right? Because we're just facing it. So let's say that in real life, we're making a part, right? So one company that we worked for, or that I worked for, we will make molds, right? And so we would machine this aluminum out and the creation of a mold, because they had molding machines. So that molding machine would inject the plastic to the shape that we cut it, right? So man, that job was kind of hard because they had a lot of tolerances of plus like 5/10 of a thousandths minus 0. So what we would do is we would leave stock allowance on the walls, right? At least 5 thousandths, so we could baby the tool in there, right? But that's how you control that in real life, when you put your stock walls. So you got finished passes and everything else. Does Does that make sense? So, total depth, so we're just gonna put 5,000s, because if not, we're not gonna see a cut or anything like that, right? Stock automation, we're just gonna leave it as no, because it's just gonna be the stock. Links, so this is the entry mode, this is how it's gonna enter. It's gonna go down, then over. Obviously, we can change this to whatever we want. Wrap it down, and then feed over. And exiting mode, that's how it's gonna exit. It's gonna go over, then to the top, right? So depending on what operation you're doing, these will sometimes change, right? So, like, for example, if I'm doing the circular interpretation, it's gonna give me more options. But since it knows that I'm facing, like, hey, all you gotta do is approach it this way and exit it that way. There's not really much to it. Does that make sense? So we hit OK. So now we see this line right here, right? So that is gonna be my toolpath, correct? So if it's not on the toolpath, like right now it's on the geo, right? I can just change this to toolpath, correct? Now if I hit play, boom, it faced the part, right? So we see here, face one side, then it faced the other side, right? But like I said, it did it like that because we left zigzag on and we told it to go 50%, right? Let's see what happens if we tell it to go 100. Y'all see how I changed the toolpath now? Now it only does one shot. Does that make sense?
And you just changed the step over there?
Yeah.
How'd you get that window? The toolpath screen?
Down here?
Yeah.
What is it, guys? F2 or
So,
F11? No, F11 is the letters. Push Alt Enter.
Yeah.
get it?
We got our facing done, correct? So now we have to make the cuts on the outside, then the cuts on the inside, and then drilling the holes. All right. So normally you would think is one operation gonna affect another operation? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the order that you would do it in, does it matter? Or is it, you can do anything you want and it's not gonna be a big deal, right? So, for example, if I was doing a part on the lathe, right? And then I had threads, but I still had to do the ID too. It had ID work that goes through it, right? What would you wanna do first, the threads, or would you wanna bore the ID?
More.
We want to do threads first. Why? Because once you bore that ID, you got less material now. So whenever you do your threads, there's more of a risk of chatter. Does that make sense? So when you have the solid stock, the solid material inside of the part, there's less of a chance that you're going to get chatter on them because it's going to be more solid. Does that make sense? So you would want to do the threads first before you do the ID. So that's what I mean by
Less wobble.
on this, is one operation going to affect another one?
Yeah.
No, not really, right? I could drill the holes first. After I face it, I could drill the holes if I want, or I could do that part or do this part, correct? Now, we're taking in mind that after we're done cutting that part, we're going to bore some jaws, put it upside down, and then, hold on. So we're taking it in mind that we're gonna cut the part, put it upside down, and then face off the rest of the material, right? Think about it, guys. If we were trying to do it in one shot, how hard would that be? Correct? Because think about it, you got the material there. Obviously, you would actually try to do the circle to begin with, because if I do the outside first, what's gonna happen to the part? It's gonna fly off, right? Whatever I'm holding it with the vice or anything else I'm holding it with, correct?
Correct.
But since we said that we're gonna machine it first, then flip it upside down, and then put it on some salt jaws, it doesn't make a difference then, because the material's gonna stay intact. Does that make sense? Because that's the only real way you could do this. Yes, in the spring, I could machine this and then machine that, and it doesn't matter because it's not real life. The life's physics aren't involved in that. Does that make sense? Everything is over here like in fairy tale land, right? So different things like that, we gotta make sure that we're covering as we're doing the part. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, now I'm just gonna take off my solid, come up here, and let's say, it doesn't matter guys, we could do the inside first, or we could do the outside first, it doesn't.
You know, before, you had us deleting those vertical lines.
Yeah, so if I click on this line, if I have snap and grid on, right? I could click on that line, hold down shift, and then if I click on that line, look how everything gets highlighted, right? So if I hit control though, then I could just click these on the outsides. Does that make sense?
So we can leave them vertically.
Yeah, so the reason why I had you guys delete it is so if you put shift and click on that line, it'll just get that top line, and that's it, right? So like I said, a lot of times there's multiple ways to do it, right? So just hitting control, holding down control, and clicking them individually would work also. Does that make sense? But yeah, normally, if you take off those lines, I just made it easier for myself, and I just gotta click shift and hit one line, and that's it, right? So now, that's gonna be, we could either make a contour, most likely we have to make a contour for it. So we highlighted that, we go to create, features, auto chain, right? So now if I click it, that's the chain that it made, correct? Now, depending on where the arrow is, so the arrow is right here, right?
Yeah.
It's going up to the left, correct? So if I don't like it, like I said, I could go to create, edit features, and I could change it, right? So now it's going that way. That's the way I want it because I want the cutter comp to be to the left. Does that make sense? But that's how you would change it. And so that has a lot of play with your tool and what direction it's going in, right? So if I start making my actual tool path and my tool is actually coming in here, right? Instead of it being on the outside, that's gonna be because either your arrow is facing the wrong way or you put the wrong cutter comp direction. Does that make sense? So now that I got that chain, okay, I'm gonna click it, come over here to contouring. Now the same thing is gonna happen because I don't have that tool yet, right? So I'm gonna grab my end mill, I'm just gonna use a 1/2 inch end mill. Hit okay, right? Now it automatically gave it a number. But we see how right here it says offset NC register 16, right? So that's telling it, can y'all see better with this light off? Because I know it's kind of, some of you guys are struggling to. Is that better? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How is it for the video? Is it
Oh, way
affecting it?
better. No, it's way better.
Okay. So, so obviously guys, I'm gonna take the short route and I'm just gonna go to cancel because I can't adjust the tool
Okay.
while I still have that operation open, right? So I'm gonna come over here now and that's gonna be my tool number 2, right? So tool number 1 is my facing, tool number 2 is gonna be that 1/2 inch end mill.
Now, when you give the operator the tool list, now he knows where to load these in this.
Exactly. Now, on the lathe, that's why you still need to go through the program, right? Because a lot of times on the lathe, well, 9 times out of 10, your tool number 1 is gonna be a rougher. Tool number 2 is gonna be your finisher. When we start running into problems, it's tool number 3, 4, and 5, right? Because we don't know if it's a part off, we don't know if it's a threading tool, We don't know if it's a grooving tool, right? It could be any one of those. So a lot of times the programmer, he knows tool number 1 is your rougher, tool number 2 is your finisher. But we gotta make sure that the other tools match the program.
And you go down and look and see.
You have to. And then the direction that it's spinning also, right? Is my insert facing up or is it facing down? Because if it's facing the wrong way, what's gonna happen? You're gonna kill that insert, right?
Crash.
Hopefully you just break that insert and then you stop it after that, right? But if it breaks and it keeps on going, bad day, right? Bad juju. So now I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna go back to my chain. Now, guys, you can rename your chains to whatever you want. The rule is, though, if I start naming it like facing, turning OD, this, that, or whatever, it's gonna relocate itself alphabetically wise. Does that make sense? So what I usually like doing is I'll click that chain, I'll right click, I'll hit rename, and then I'll put 1 dash facing. And on this one,
Where's these?
I'll rename it and I'll put 2 dash, cutting
Content
OD.
profile.
Or profile, yeah, whatever makes sense to you, right?
That keeps it in order with the number.
Yeah. By you putting those numbers on there, it's gonna keep it in order, right? Like I tell everybody, make sure you take the extra time of doing that because you just have more control, right? Because the worst, like this is a very simple part, correct? It's easy. But wait until you get to more difficult parts and you got 100 operations, right? And if you find something that's wrong and you gotta narrow it down, like this you have more control of it. Does that make sense? All right, so we have the profile. Did we check to make sure that it's good?
No.
Oh, we didn't actually do
You
it.
gotta tie a tool to it.
All right, so started more traditional. We're gonna go to contouring now, right? So which tool? The 1/2 inch in middle, correct? RPM, we're just gonna put 1500.
1,000.
Whoops. That's gonna be fast.
Sounds like a dental drill.
Put some oil on it. Grease it up.
I think that house would alarm out because it's gonna. I don't think it could go 15,000. All right. So over here on strategy, like I said, guys, this number of roughing passes, we're just gonna go 1. Finish pass, no. If I put here yes, look what happened. Another option came down, right? For finish. You guys see that? But we don't need it because we're just gonna pretty much cut it, right? And if this is a gasket, it shouldn't really be that tight of the tolerances, especially if we're talking about like automotive or some type of pipe or whatever. Yeah, but if this was like a part for NASA, yeah, then we gotta like get it down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, no Home Depot gas.
Yeah.
This one, that internet could be,
That would be some stuff, huh? Hey, the ship's gonna launch. Hey, we need a gasket. Go stop at Home Depot before we go. What?
get some O-rings.
All right, so that's what that's for. Cutting
Just jitty weld
strategy
it.
is climb. So obviously we can pick conventional or climb, right? Process order. So we're gonna be cutting it by the width, not the depth of it, right? Spiral move, yes or no? I sometimes put yes when I'm bored and I want to see it do cool things because it spirals down, right? It's exciting for me. I don't know. All right. Stock allowance, like we said earlier, for the walls or for the floor, right? If this was like a counterboard and the depth from here to here was very important, then that's when you would leave it for the floors. Does that make sense? You leave like 5 thousandths on there, right? Total depth, so we're gonna go, we could just call it 100 thousandths, right? So right here, incremental depth. So if I leave it at 0.5, this is gonna do it in one shot, correct? Because it's not, it's only going down 100 thousandths. So if I change that to like 25 thousandths, when it dishes out the code, it would take 4 or 5 different steps. Does that make sense? Did he go over like all this and everything in depth?
Yeah.
Like, so you guys know all this already?
We touched
Yeah, we
on
know
it.
the depth.
But the depth on this, isn't it 600,000,
60,000.
60,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just going a little bit more to 100 thousandths, right? Because obviously if you make one side, you'd have to go deeper because when you flip it over, you want it to be a clean surface on the other end, correct? So offset side computer to the left, right? That's our cutter comp, correct? Tool radius left, yes. Cutter comp NC to the left, right? So this arrow is facing this way, correct? So if you have it on the left, that's why it's gonna cut on the outside of it, right? If I accidentally push right, it's gonna cut into the part, the width of the tool. Does that make sense? So if you have that issue, that's why. Stock automation, like we did it in the last class and I showed you guys, if I keep it at no, it's just gonna come over here and it's gonna cut once. That's it. If I put yes, it's gonna take the stock material into play and it's gonna cut all that, right? So you guys remember that on Thursday? Yes, no, maybe. All right, we'll leave it as no for right now so I can show you both ways, all right? Advanced, all of this is fine the way that it is. Links, all that's gonna be.
He wasn't even gonna try to pronounce that word.
Huh?
I said you said all this. You didn't even want to try to pronounce that word.
I would say trochodial. How would y'all say that word?
Tricoidal.
So that's just a strategy, that's how it's going in, and that type of stuff. But like I said, this, you don't need to change nothing on it, right? It could stay the same as it is. Links, this is just your entry mode and your lead out mode, and that's it. So for right now, what we're doing, this isn't that that important because it could approach and it could come out of it any way it wants, right? Now, when it comes into play, it's like, let's say we were doing a groove through the middle of it, right? So now I would probably have to change those values to make it come in from here to go up and then leave, right? Because if it says, hey, you're asking me to radio in, but if I go in from the side, I'm gonna cut more material, less material, and then that's when you would have issues with it. Does that make sense? But what we're doing right now, it's not a big deal. So when I hit OK, we see how the tool comes in here, and it cuts, and then it goes back there, right? Like I said earlier, we put on there no for the stock material, right? That's why it's leaving this extra material over here, correct? If I wanted to change that, I would just go back to contouring, go to strategy, come down, and hit yes. So now when I hit OK, watch what happens to the tool path.
That was something we could have learned last time.
Right. So now, if I hit play, we can see it come from the outside in, right?
What, that was on the, what's the,
Stock automation, strategy. Strategy tab under stock automation.
But if you're just cutting that part out, you wouldn't need that. You wouldn't care about the.
They would just fall off.
The extra material.
Yeah, it all depends, like the situation, how you're holding it,
Mhm.
and everything like that also. If for some reason you're that advanced that you're holding it down with a magnet and it's magnetable, then yes, you could just cut that and then unmagnetize it or whatever and then take the part out. No big deal. But 9 times out of 10, you're holding it with a vice or something else, right? So it needs to be holding it with something. All right, so that's that one. Now if I click this line, go to create, features, auto chain, right? So there goes my chain. My arrow is going to the right. I don't like that. I'm gonna make my arrow go to the left. See how I moved it? So I'm gonna have cutter come to the left.
Can you grab these little boxes and stick them up there on your toolbar area? I was just wondering. It
Yeah,
seems like you have to like
you
open it
could,
up. Yeah,
but
okay.
try to get used to this format, guys, because almost everywhere you go, the way that I have it on top is almost like the same way how everybody has it, right? Almost any company you go to. I know that when you get eSprit and your personal computers, sometimes they're all random, right? They're in different places and stuff like that. Try to get used to having it like this. That way it's the same for everybody, and you keep the consistency. See what you did? You cut a comp. That's the problem on yours. If it's right, put it that way. So, what I'm gonna do now is do the inside one now, right? So I'm gonna kick that chain, come up here, and I'm gonna go pocketing this time, because it's a pocket, correct? So up here under general, it already says pocketing. Rough pass, yes. Finish on the wall, no, no. I could use the same 1/2 inch end mill, correct? For this. Come down to strategy. Stock automation, stay inside
Oh,
feature.
depth?
Huh?
You gotta change the depth.
Yeah. Okay. So on there, we're gonna go 0.1 also. Alright. So other than that though, all this looks pretty good. Go to pocket. We don't really gotta change anything. Here's my cutting speeds and feeds. Notice that it's on a different page, right? The other one, it was on the general, correct? It would come out. But since we're doing pocketing, it's under where it says rough, right?
15,000.
So we would have to change this 2,000, spy, 20, and then 40. Alright, like we said, the stock diameter and everything, entry mode is going to wrap along pass. So it could plunge, helical. Like I said, I like helical. Go to the second. Alright, everything else we can leave it there. So now when we run it, facing, there's a profile, and then a helical. Alright. So the only things left is what?
Drill the holes.
There's the holes, right? So all I gotta do is make a point. See how I took it to the center?
Yeah.
Same thing here, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to create, features, and this is gonna be a P-top. You guys remember P-top?
Barely.
So make one there,
Stop it.
then stop. Right? So now under P-top, I'm gonna go to drilling. But remember guys, we gotta make the tool also, right? So when I come over here, it's gonna go to drill and 0.31, right? 0.31, hit OK. Like I said, I'm gonna hit cancel because it probably put it, see how I put it in tool number 19? So we're just gonna fix that and put it in tool number 3. Okay, so I put 2. Now hit OK, come back over here, go back to the P-top, go down to drilling, alright? So it's drilling, what tool? Well, we just made it, correct? Give it a RPM. We'll do 800, because we're drilling. Feed rate, probably like 15, alright? Go to drill total depth. So we're gonna include a point to it. So normally, if it's 118 degrees, the pretty much basic formula is 0.032, I think, or 325 times the diameter of the tool, right? And that would give you how much extra you gotta go, right? So for in our case, and it's asking right here, so right here where it says cycle type, are we just gonna drill? Just a straight drill, right? Or are we gonna do pecking? Are we gonna do tapping? Here's where you would change the numbers, and here's where it would give you a G82 or a G81 inside of your code, right? We're just gonna do regular drill, reverse it, no. Total depth, 150 is fine. All right.
15?
150 thousand.
Oh, I thought you said 50.
So start depth, we're gonna leave that at 0. So we're gonna leave that at Z0, right? So the reason that you would change that is if you're drilling a hole and it has different planes. You get what I'm saying? You could start drilling, like if you have a plane like this, you could start drilling over here versus at Z0 because you're just gonna be cutting air all the way down, right?
I cut air all the time.
So can cycle, here's where you can tell it whether it's a can cycle or not. Dwell, your tip already included, yes or no. So you can put no, and then it's gonna take it a little bit further than 150. Does that make sense? So after that, hit OK. Oh, I gotta see what that's. And there it goes, guys. So now, 0.15. So now when I hit play, it just made my whole part.
Yay.
Too easy?
Should be. Will be eventually.
What the heck? It's on there?
So also, the way that I just did the drill holes is I would.
Alright, so if I hit stop now, alright, now we'll go to File, Advancing C Code. This is where the post processor comes into play, right? You guys don't have this. Oh, did they take it off the machine? Oh, I hope not. It's not letting me open it.
Now you can. Now you can't.
It goes away.
Roll. Maybe you hit the drop down under the file name on the bottom. No.
Let me see if it's because they took it off of this machine.
Plug it in, plug it in.
What's my flash drive?
In the computer.
Oh, but it's not coming out. one either.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Nope. Hmm.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah, go ahead, take a break, guys. If I don't have it on here, I'm gonna have to get the ITs to come put it on again. But it should have been,
Can you hit that drop down on the bottom down?
huh?
Hit cancel or go out of that. Oh, it wants to do it.
Unexpected error.
I'm saying under the bottom where it shows file name, there's that drop down arrow. When you don't have nothing selected, it's you could see if you could hit that to select it.
You know, when I first opened it.
Like right there on the bottom,
Yeah,
you see
it
it.
says open, right?
No, but look to the left. You see the file name where it's blinking? Hit that drop down arrow on the right side of that box.
Right
Go
here.
down. No, down. Over.
file name where the.
Go down. Yeah, go to the right and click that drop down. See if right there. See if that'll work. Oh. It was worth a shot. Nothing else was working.
No, and even if I type that in, I don't know if they erased it from the computer. Uh-oh.
Oh snap. Might have found it. Ah! We have hope.
Not opening it.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah, let me see if the flash, because I had it on a flash drive, but I don't know where that flash drive is at.